I believe there is a sequence and a code to unlocking anything you want in your life. What's happening, everybody? Man, thank you guys for tuning in. What's up, Bowler? Glad to see you finally got a camera, catching up with the times, able to kind of, you're one of those late adopters, right? You know, just when you're forced to, then you finally embrace it.
Yeah, dude, I carried a BlackBerry forever. You know this.
Oh, man, appreciate you guys tuning in. We've got Mr. Stace Bohlender joining us, and from the downtown of the L.
Hell, where all the dreams come true, man. Dude, I got like the best office in the world. So like, it's like reality TV out there. So I got windows on both sides and it's very busy. I got the tag agency across the street and I got the mall over here to my left. And dude, I could just get lost looking outside every single day at all the things that people do. So I've got this like mirrored tint on my window so you can't see in during the day. And people will come up to my windows and they stare at it. They fix their hair. They pick their nose. They do all kinds of this crazy crap, man. It's awesome.
Hey, it doesn't surprise me, man. That's Lawton, Oklahoma for you.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I see the guy, the scrappers walking by with their stolen grocery carts, taking metal to the, get some money.
We do need to talk about your parking lot. You almost took out my dad, and then you're going to take out Carla. Like, what's going on over there, man?
I guess it's dangerous, man. It's like it's cursed. It's cursed. How was your dad? Your dad good?
Dad's good, man. Back and forth. He was in the hospital just this past week. A little slight pneumonia, but got him back. Got him good. He's back home. Keep him moving. So good. Appreciate that. You guys tuning in. So Stace is one of the gentlemen. Him and his partner in crime, who is not able to join us today, Mr. Reedy Daly. We go way back. These fellas. I've been there with Kinder since 2004. Reedy was Jay's first buyer's agent in 2001. And when did you come in? 2005, 6?
04.
Okay, so you came in.
I got licensed in 04.
Yes, came in at the same time. You were still working part-time, peddling cell phones.
Yep. Full-time, and then I went part-time, and then I went no time, and then full-time real estate.
Man, talk about that transition for you. And I mean, even, working in the sales side of things, how that helped you transition into real estate. How those skills carried over.
Yeah. So, US Cellular is who I work for. So it's a pretty big company. And, during the time when I worked for them, I developed a lot of skills. They did a lot of training for us and tried to teach us, how to know our competition, what our competitors offered, and they to really how to focus on that client and then build a relationship, because cell phones were something that anybody can go out there and get from anybody, right? So you had to have some kind of value proposition, or you had to have some knowledge of the market, so to convert them to why they should do business with us. And my whole thing is, I learned where my competitors' phones wouldn't work, right? So there's areas around Lawton and, the rural communities. We have mountains that, their signals doesn't get through at AT&T or Verizon or whoever. And, rural areas, rural carrier is what US Cellular was. So, I really honed in on what my competition's weaknesses were. And then I used that against them, and not in any ill intent, but that's how I converted my clients. And I had such a large database of people or following that came to me. So that's where I really honed my sales skills. And then as I started to transition, I hated working in the corporate world. Like I am not a corporate person. Like that is not for me. Like I worked for Delta Airlines, not for me. I worked for US Cellular, not for me. I'm like, no, I want to be able to have some freedom, do my own thing, and I don't really like rules too much,
No,
no. So
no rules.
I wanted to make the rules, right? So anyway, so I used those things, those tools that they gave us or gave me, and then that's what I carried over into real estate, or tried. Like whenever I first got into real estate, I felt miserably though. Like I didn't have the discipline I needed to make myself successful. And I look back at the things that I used to do in real estate, and I don't even really know how I even sold a house. Like I just lucked into them.
Tell me what you mean by didn't have the discipline. What does that mean?
So I didn't wake up every single day and get dressed and ready to show up. Like I was to the point that I got very lackadaisical, lazy. I didn't invest in myself. I didn't take the knowledge. I just took my people skills that I had. I'm good with people, right? I understand people, right? And I pay attention to them, but I didn't apply those things. What I did is I got leads, where I came up with business, but I didn't follow up with them the way that I should. I didn't take care of them the way that I should. I sold a house, John, to a guy, called him by the wrong name for the whole transaction. Like, who does that? Like, me. And so, and he never corrected me. And I could not for the life of me figure out why he never corrected me. But so I never applied the things that I needed to apply to be more successful. I would have been way more successful way early on if I would have done the things that I knew that I should be doing, but I didn't because I got lazy. And that's what, I think a lot of people do get lazy when they get in this business, is because they have the freedom and they don't have the discipline every single day to get up and show up. They get up and they make their coffee, which is fine, drink coffee or whatever, but they get up, they drink their coffee, then they start a load of laundry, and then they start cleaning their house. And then, where they don't ever leave in the house, and they end up wasting half a day before they did anything. I always say now that I do, and no offense to anybody out there, but I feel like I do more work in the first 3 hours of the day than most realtors do in all day or even in a week.
Right.
Because I get up and I take and I do all the hard things that I need to do in the morning, and I knock those out. And
what are those hard things?
So like the hard things would be the decision-making things that I need to be doing in the business to better the business, whether it be, whatever the coming up with the ideas or smarting it out or working on the priorities, doing my one-on-ones with my realtors, my agents to help them. And that's something that I've really started really focusing on, is trying to pour into my realtors, because unfortunately, I did get a little lax there because I expected them to know what I knew, but then I forget that I took 20 years to get there. Right. So I kind of failed them. So I'm really trying to go back after them. And I do that in the morning, because that takes more of my brain power to be able to pour into them. And so all the hard decisions that I have to make, or all the things that are going to take the most brain power, is what I knock out in the morning.
Right.
And in the afternoons, it's pretty easy.
So, starting out, not having the discipline, just being kind of like, hey, I can do whatever I want. What changed? What was the kind of that switch for you that flipped it to where, hey, this isn't serving me. I got to make a change.
Two instances really. So I kind of spiraled a little bit, right? So I still made money, and I was, doing okay. And so I kind of backtrack, I guess, a little bit. So what I applied myself at is, you called me bowler earlier. So I bowled all over the country, right? So I went all over the country, and I supplemented my income by the money that I made in bowling. So, but the defining point for me, and it's embarrassing, but it's not embarrassing. This is what changed my life, really. So I split up with my daughter's mother, and I had all of these bills that I had acquired from her and my daughter and me, and my vehicles loaded up on the back of a tow truck because I didn't have the money to pay my car payments.
Yeah.
So that was my defining point right there. I'm like, what am I doing? Why don't I get up every single day and go do the things that I know that work and apply those things? And it's pretty humbling whenever you go outside and they're repoing your vehicle, right? So I ended up I got the money before they took it and did whatever, they impounded it or whatever. And then, but the tow truck driver, had to wire all the money to go Western Union and get it to the bank and all these things. And the tow truck driver took me in his freaking tow truck. Like, he drove me around town to do these things that I needed to do because I don't think he wanted to take my vehicle either. So that was the moment right there that really defines me, I think, as a person, because I don't ever want to go back to that.
Right.
Like, that was pretty rough.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of people out there that have the exact same experiences, that they've all gone through it. Everybody has hit some kind of rock bottom, right? And until you truly hit rock bottom, you're not going to climb up.
Right.
Like, you'll just continue to go a little lower and a little lower and a little lower. And then once you decide, no, then that ain't for me no more, then you're going to start applying those things. And then that's when I really started seeking knowledge, trying to figure out what I needed to do to be successful. And it's not, I'm not taking anything away from you or, Jay or whoever, everybody I was surrounded with, because those are the people that helped build me back up.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at, I'm like, damn, if they're doing these things, I can do these things. Why don't I listen to what they're trying to tell me to do? Right.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes we have that barrier up, which is ego, right? So we've got the ego up and we're not willing to receive the information that's around. And that I remember a saying over Zane's karate studio, walking in there, is like, it's along the lines of, the teacher, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And so it's just like, like we can open the door, but you have to walk through it. And, you have to be willing to accept it. You got to be willing to accept it. You got to be able to walk through the door. And I think sometimes, we need to be humbled in some capacity to be able to, like, okay, and then now it's time to walk through the door. So that, experience for all of us, right? We've all had some type of experience there, and it could either send you even down a further spiral, or you can choose to do something about it. And you chose to do something about it. So you started seeking, you started learning, started paying attention. Do you remember kind of like your action items, that momentum, the things that you were doing that helped start to move you in the opposite direction?
Well, the very first thing that I knew to do was to make my calls, right? So I started making those calls. And so, and I know, a lot of people are hesitant on making, they don't want to get on the phones because they don't want to face rejection. They don't want to make all these calls and not get a hold of anybody or whatever it is. But me, I was like, you know what? No, this ain't going to work. I'm going to have to call people because I ain't got no more money at this point in time. Right. So I just borrowed money to get my truck off of the damn trailer or the tow truck to be able to come to work to make these calls. So I started showing up and making those calls, and I would make those calls until I set an appointment, right? And I don't care how many calls I had to make. I set an appointment to get in front of somebody. And then if I made all these calls, then I sent them an email and I sent them text messages. I just started making sure that I was having all having contacts with people, right? So, I was like a secret agent. Like, I wasn't doing anything. I was expecting people to come to me or seek me out. And that's not because that's what I saw happening to other people. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, no, maybe they'll just hand it to me or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that's what a lot of agents right now, that's why a lot of agents are going to be exiting the business. And a lot of agents are going to struggle because that's how they've been kind of rewarded for bad behavior over the last couple of years. And especially a lot of the new agents that haven't had to show up and had to be proactive, have to, it's not just showing up. I don't believe you just show up. I believe you got to show up and you got to take action. And so that was the thing, is you got in there and you started doing the engagements, the activities within your control to be able to create and have conversations.
100%. So, it's back to, it's kind of like going back now, the market is shifting. And I know everybody talks about, market shifts, but the market is shifting in my opinion, it's going back to like 2017 or 18 or 19, where you actually had to do things to be able to get in front of clients. You actually have to have some kind of value add for them. You've got to have a presentation. So, everybody now is, all you had to do is put a sign in the yard and you were going to get a paycheck. You didn't have to negotiate any type of repairs. You didn't have to negotiate any cost or have, a lender that's going to be able to get that cost down or buy down your rate, or, all you did was put a sign in the yard. And now, to me, the market is what, people will say, oh, well, I sold this house above asking price and I got 14 offers on this property. The market did that. I don't think you did that as a realtor. You had a sign in the yard and you were the beneficiary of that. Right. That's my opinion, right? Now, what you could do is you could help drive the price up a little bit in your negotiations after the fact, but people were just paying all these unrealistic prices and these terms, and those things are gone now. Like, you're getting 25, 30% of homes on the market are now having repositioning on the price and trying to readjust. And so, the veterans understand that, but new realtors, they don't. They're still throwing, a higher price or an unrealistic price out there in hopes that it sells. And we know that hope's not a strategy. So to me, I think you have to go back to the grind of the things that you used to do pre-pandemic, to where homes did sit on the market for 30, 60, 90, 120 days. Because I think that's going to be happening more and more and more. Right. So, you got to shift with it, and you got to go back to the basics. And that is being very, very disciplined.
So I'm going to take us back to when you started building those disciplines and those skill sets. There's two things that when I talk about you as, how great of an agent you are, is that the two things that I really took away from you that you were, I believe, world class. You're world class at getting in front of people, listening, articulating your value, and then telling them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. I think you do that better than anybody. And you do it in a very bedside manner, matter of fact, tactful way. And then the other thing that I think you're world class at is that you're world class at knowing what's going on in the market. I always joke you've been in more backyards than anybody in the entire Lawton, Oklahoma. But you have, literally, you've been in so many damn houses.
On some without.
But you have been in so many damn houses and really out in the market, but also like you're constantly, every time, I'd pop in and check on you or just come up to kind of connect. You were studying, you were buried deep in the market. You were studying what's going on, houses coming on, what's going on here. And I think those two things really stand out to me. And I had a really good conversation with Kyle Whistle yesterday, and he believes the number one thing, if you want to survive, you cannot be average. You got to be world-class, and you got to be world-class in your sales and marketing skills. And, that's, you're definitely there. You definitely check those boxes. So kind of share with how you developed that.
So I guess as far as telling people what they need to know and not what they want to hear is, I think maybe that's a little bit of just my personality in general, but I figured out that when you leave it to chance, or you leave the decision up to those clients, they're always going to make the easiest decision, right? Which is going to, what does it say? People move away from pain to pleasure, right? And so if you give them the ability to make the decision, the wrong decision, that's the one that they're going to go with, because that's what's going to be easier for them. So, what it did is it created chaos and turmoil and heartache in my own life, because I was always having to try to combat their decisions that they made based on their emotions. So I figured that I need to start taking their emotions out of this, right? And I need to be talking to them like this is and it's still their home, and I get that, but as a business transaction, they want to sell their home. So I have to start looking at it as I'm handling their money for them. And so then I started having these hard conversations to where they were wanting to do things that were based on, I was going to help them create some more pleasure. I was inflicting pain on them because that's what was going to happen if they went down this route. But they thought that was going to be the easier route for them, which it really isn't. It was going to be a more painful route, right? So I try to map that out for them and try to look into the future, the things that they're not seeing. So me telling them, the reason I tell people what they need to know and not what they want to hear is because it makes my life easier. Mm-hmm. It makes me and my company, my staff, it makes their lives easier, because I'm managing those expectations and I am taking control of the situation for them. And that's really why I think that they're hiring us, is because they're getting that value from us. And when people start telling me, they're like, when they start asking me what they should be doing in their personal life and with their homes and things like that, and they say, you're the expert, I need you to know, then I know that they are fully engaged and bought into our process and what I am saying. And they know they trust me, and they're going to listen to everything that I have to say. Yeah. So that is, to me, is why I tell people what they need to hear, just simply because it makes my life easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right to the point. You don't want to, because then it's, it's always that ripple effect. If you don't, then you get to deal with it through the process. And, like as days on market start to increase, and, you're having to manage that in those conversations for 30, 45, 60, 90 days. It's a pain. And, the other thing that I think probably helped you a lot, especially when it comes to real estate, and getting, on the couch or face to face with the seller at the kitchen table was really when you've got to sell 50, 60, $70,000 homes to survive, like you get pretty damn good. And
yeah, it hones your skills.
It hones your skills. And I think you've made more commission on some deals than the house was even worth. So, I think those hard things, those details, and that's the one thing that I loved about really, being in the Lawton market is that, the details mattered. We had to get the transaction fee. We had to get maximum amount of commission. We didn't have a choice just because of our average sales price, and the details were so dang important. And I think that really honed in the skills for all of us.
It's absolutely. And so going on this lower price point homes, it actually taught me a lot about people too. That was,
What do you mean?
It taught me a lot about people and who they are and how things. So for instance, if I sold a $40,000 and $50,000, $60,000 home, that money meant more to them than a home that was $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to some people, right? And they didn't have any money to work with, so I had to be very creative for them to help them. And a lot of times they were in very, very dire straight situations that they had to sell. Like and I'm not saying that people in the higher price point don't, but it taught me the value. I think it taught me the value of people. And I want to help everybody the same, right? So a lot of people look at it as somebody, I got a $50,000 or $40,000 listing appointment, and they don't really put any time and effort, energy, and they don't want to mess with it. They'll turn them down. To me, I want to try to help those people because I know that they need that help. They need it probably more than the next person. And so, that just goes back to me trying to be the best for I can with people. But it taught me, that kept me humble too, doing that. Right. So as I had some success and I was selling these houses, it was actually I was more proud of selling a $50,000 and $55,000 house than I was a $150,000 or $200,000 house, because it was harder, it was more challenging, and those people appreciated it more.
Yeah, I think there's a level of empathy that was driven from there, right? Because I think having your situation with the truck on the back of the tow truck, and then you're looking at people getting into situations, and then there was a level of empathy, right? You would really listen to them and in their situation, and you could feel it. And so that's it is one of the most critical skills to develop, is that kind of that soft skill of emotional intelligence, and understand. Yeah. You may sell, 70, 80, your typical 70, 80, 100 homes a year yourself, yet like that person, that's that one time experience moment for them. And they need to feel that they're just not a transaction to you.
Yeah. So I can give, an instance of, there was a house out in the country, and they both worked for Halliburton. And this is right when the pandemic happened, and they had two kids, they were young in age, they were a young couple, and they both got laid off at the exact same time. And they're having to sell their home because they were basically going broke and they didn't have any money. So they sit here in my office with me one day, and this house was it was $115,000 or $120,000 house, and they were going to make some money when they sold it. But they were sitting here, and they were basically, it was under contract, and they had repairs that needed to be done. They said, if we spend this money on these repairs, Stace, then we're not going to have any money to buy our food for our family, until this house closes. So I was like, fortunately, I need you to do these repairs, because they were appraisal required repairs. So I pulled my money out of my pocket, and I gave them money. I gave them $200 or $300, and I said, you need to go buy you groceries and put these in the refrigerator until we can make it to closing. And so, they took that money, but that's what you're talking about, that empathy and having feelings for your clients, or, want to help somebody. And, that meant the world to me to be able to have that opportunity to be able to give it to them.
Right.
To be able to put food on the table.
Yeah, it is. It's really powerful. Kind of, as we kind of, progressed and continued to grow, and we finally got Kinder completely out of the business, and you transitioned and running and gunning, just really on the listing side, but more so when you and Reedy took over and really just started running the show, and then eventually partnering, and it's your guys' business. What was kind of that I'm always interested with everybody's take on partnerships. Everybody has a different, pro partnership, not against it. I'm definitely pro partnership. And kind of talk to me a little bit, Stace, kind of how that transition was with you and Reedy. Not fair. We'll pick on Reedy since he's not here, but kind of how, that kind of came together. I mean, shit, like I said, Reedy was there 01, you 04, 06, I think was full time, right? 06
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere right there.
So just running and gunning, being there the whole time, really developed, strong relationship. I mean, we were tight, all of us. I mean, family. I mean, we did everything together. So how did that kind of morph and from a partnership perspective, how that's been for you?
So I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night. He called me. He was actually a client of mine too. I just sold a house for him and sold his house. Yet he says he failed. He tried to create a business with partners, and his business failed because he had the wrong partners. And he was sitting there talking to me about, he said, man, he said, Reedy lucked into being a partner with you, and you lucked into being a partner with Reedy. And I said, man, but what our relationship is now is not what it used to be.
Right.
Like there was so many times in this process that, we bought out, Jay and you guys, and we had to rebrand ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So we utilized Jay's name for a little while, but then we were trying to create something that was our own. And so then that was a monster in itself, trying to go through and rebrand and kill everything off and whatnot. But Reedy and I have not always been the way that we are now. Now we
what do you mean by that?
So we fully trust each other. I know Reedy's not going to do something that's going to harm the business, and he knows I'm not going to do anything that's going to harm the business, right? Whereas we had impasses that we couldn't get past, right? Because his belief was one thing and my belief was the other thing. So it's kind of like when you get married or you're in a relationship with somebody, you have to learn to compromise. Well, we weren't very good at compromising.
No, you're not. He isn't either.
No, hell no, we're not. Like I don't want to compromise on some things, but I've learned that, I probably should compromise, right? So it's not, my way is not always right, and his way is not always right. So we have learned to compromise. But I can tell you that there's been times that I know Reedy's wanted to choke me, and I've almost choked him. So and there was times that we would go weeks with not even talking to each other, and we're partners and we're in a business together. I'm like, we can't do this. So anyways, it took some time to, we look at each other. We're like brothers. Reedy and I are like brothers, like you and I, we're like brothers. I mean, I know a lot about you. You know a lot about me. I know a lot about Reedy, and Reedy knows a lot about me. So, but it took it. If you are pro partnership, then you have to have that right partner. And if you don't, your business ain't going to go nowhere. It's just going to go right in the fucking mud.
Right.
Excuse my language. It's going to tank. Right. So, and there was times that Reedy and I weren't doing so good. Like, our business was struggling. We against each other. And so we finally got on the same page. I'm like, man, we're married to each other, man. Like, we have to do these things. We have our families to take care of. We've got other people's families to take care of. We've got realtors that work here. We got staff. We have clients. It's like, it ain't just about us, man. It's about everybody else. And so, once we got on the same page with that, then that's when our business really started to going in a different direction.
Yeah.
Just being on the same page.
What would you tell somebody if they're kind of, struggling with that with the partner in that dynamic, what are some actionable items that you would tell them to, hey, you need to do this, this, and this to really start to get the momentum and get on that same page to move forward?
Couples counseling. No, so you really have to show up and you have to be engaged. And I think that you have to be very intentional in your conversations with somebody because I think that probably there becomes resentment in those, partnerships, and when there's no compromise. And I think that, you just got to be very transparent. So you got to have to start really you got to check in with one another on a regular basis. You got to have one-on-ones with each other. In my opinion, you've got to be able to dissect your business. You got to have those impact zone meetings. You've always got to be present and do things together in the beginning. And then you can start once you are on the same page, then I think you can probably start to venture out a little bit more. And I'll be taking charge of this and you take charge of that, because I know now that I can entrust you with that and they can entrust me with the things that I need to do.
So get in and spend more time together and talk through things together more than kind of an assigning a priority, getting clear on, what is success, and then letting each other run. So yeah, I like that. I do. I think, especially when it's turbulent, most people want to talk less, but I believe, and I know, we know this, you have to talk more. You've got to communicate more, communicate at a higher cadence. Just
Absolutely.
constantly communicating, talking, seeing what you need to see. What are we learning? What do we need to iterate on? And I think that's where, when most people that wedge is driven, they don't talk, and that doesn't help because you can't work through what we're needing to work through.
Yeah. So one of the things that I started doing is, so I have a tendency, and I don't really think I talk that much, but people say I talk, but it just really depends on what it is. But my problem was, I felt like, I talk too much because I have a very dominant personality. Like I have a very strong personality.
Right.
Right. So, and I can overshadow or I can overpower people just because of what I say and how I do things. And, just so what I've learned to do is step back and ask them what they think we should do.
Right.
So I get their opinion first.
Right.
Because I've already come up with my own opinion, and then I try to match those together and then figure out what the outcome really should be. So it's like putting a piece of a puzzle together. And you start with a border, and then you start to match all the pieces up, and then you start to put it together once you have all your little piles of all the same colors and your borders together, right? You don't just start in the middle of a puzzle and then just try to figure it out and put it together and work your way out, right? That'd be insane. You would never get it done.
Right.
So that's when I started asking those questions. Well, what do you think we should do? Kind of like, you would say, hey, bring me, 3 solutions to your problem, right? We still do that, right? So it should not apply. I mean, it applies to Reedy and myself, or whoever your partner is in your business, to get on the same page, right? So get their buy-in on what they think that the solution could be or can be, and match them together. And then if they're the same, then it's simple. Squash, it's done. Just run with it.
Go. Yeah, I think it's really good, kind of leadership lesson there, creating that culture of independence, of thoughtfulness, and be resourceful. Don't, and the hard thing too with most people is that they got to let go of that, and they want to, always be in control. But however, the more that we allow our people to be dependent upon us, they'll never become the who that we need them to be. They'll never be able to run in that function that we need them to excel at if they're always dependent upon us. And so it really is, a great shift, a great lesson. I think, ties back to the core values. And so that's, to me, is really important to really understand and embrace and let go, as hard as it may be.
Yeah, it is hard to let go, especially because sometimes it's easier for you just to handle it yourself and move on down the road. But if it's not your box to fill, then you've got to be able to let them have some leniency to be able to let them do their job. And I say this to my daughter all the time. She's 21 years old and she's asking me questions all the time. And I'm like, and to me, they're kind of dumb questions, but to her, she really doesn't know the answer. And to me, they're easy. And so, and I'm like, well, what do you think? She's like, well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. And I said, what if I wasn't here? How would you find out? And she was like, well, Google. And I'm like, great. You got your phone, Google it. And then give me the answer. You know, it's like, I'm telling her to do those things to be able to have some independence, to be able to problem solve.
Right. 100%. You know, where do you go to find those solutions? And for us as leaders, we can say, hey, here's a couple of resources that you need to exhaust until, you know, you try to go to somebody else. Like be resourceful, figure it out. Where are the resources? What are the questions? What are the things that you need to learn? And so that it's hard, but it's really, I think, critical to develop that within the organization, within the culture, for people to problem solve. And, you know, sometimes, you know, being a little absent, not returning phone calls right away, not being so available, because you know this. I mean, somebody will ask a question, and you know, a couple hours later, you finally kind of get back around to it, and they're like, "Oh, I already got it figured out." It's just like, okay, cool.
So that is something that I've really been. I used to answer the phone all the time whenever my people would call me. Right? I don't now. No, they'll tell you like, well, you don't ever answer the phone when I call. Well, there's a reason for it. I don't answer because I want you to think for yourself. And most of the time when I call them back, you know what they say? Exactly what you just said. I already got it figured out. I'm like, great, cool. Talk to you later. I don't even know what it is. Like, they handled it. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The only thing that, you know, you might every now and then pop in and say is, cool, how'd you figure it out? And that that reinforces, well, shit, I went here and I figured this out. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, do that more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Man, one thing that I love for you to kind of break apart, because, you know, in the traditional sense of within the real estate model, and you hear people say, well, you know, ISAs and this, that, the other, we've always had a different belief of how we've always leveraged and used our ISAs. And specifically, I believe how, you know, we've always had it structured, and, you know, even with Jay and then you, and then transition just full-time you, I've always believed that ISA is an extension of you. I feel like they're almost an executive assistant to you, which in executive assistant's roles and responsibilities is communication in your calendar. And so they've always kind of been that gatekeeper to your calendar. They've always been communication. Everything runs through them. Like, you know, we'd be out having dinner or drinks, and somebody would pop in, want to talk about real estate. We'd say, hey, we'll have Dina give you a call, you know, tomorrow. Right. Cause we fumble it. We mess it up. Like, you don't even go through the seller counseling interview, but that's their role to do it the right way. Talk to me. And then you've got other people like, no, they need to be hitting the phones, you know, 6 hours a day, proactive, and this is their deal. How do you kind of your take with the ISA, you know, that you see that gives you the most leverage?
So I'm going to start with ISA is a very hard role. I think it's a hard role to fill. It's not a hard role to fill, but it's a hard position to keep people in.
Yep. It's
right?
High turnover.
It's very high turnover. So but to me, an ISA increases the amount of productivity that you have tenfold. Like, it's amazing. Because here's the thing is, I don't want to sit and bang out calls, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I got other things that I have to take care of. Right. So, but the ISAs are able to create so much rapport with the people that they're talking to on the phone. You know, if they do their job right on the front end, when you get to that home, there's very little communication I say communication, but very little things that I think that you have to go through. They are probably about 80% sold on you if your ISA does everything that they're supposed to do, right? So like, my ISAs are setting the appointment, they gather information, they're filling out the interview sheets to put it in my calendar. They're calling them to confirm the appointment. They're sending them an email to confirm the appointment. And then they're sending them videos and inside of that, and asking them to watch those videos, right? And so, you know, if these clients are doing all of those things and they're getting this communication from us on the front end, they're like, well, dang, they got their shit together, right? These are the people that I want to be able to, you know, help me sell my home. And so when I get there, my appointment was cut from, you know, an hour and a half to maybe 30 or 45 minutes, right? It gives me a lot of time back in my day. And then a lot of people they tell me, man, your ISA was so, nice on the phone, very pleasant to deal with. They did a fantastic job. Whatever you're paying them, you don't pay them enough. I mean, it's, if they do the things on the front end for you, then it just makes your life easier. And I'm about making my life easier. I don't want it to be difficult. Like, I've had a difficult life. I don't want it to be difficult anymore. I want it to be streamlined. So anything that I can do to train them, to help them know values and neighborhoods. And I tell my ISAs, because a lot of times they want to, get into real estate. Right. So I said, if you can do this job successfully, I said, you will be better than any realtor that I have.
100%. Because it's the one skill that they have to develop that most real estate agents don't want to do. I mean, you talked about it right in the beginning, right? I thought the business was going to come to me. No, I got to be proactive. I got to engage. I got to have conversations. And like, if you can develop that skill, that piece of the function of the process, game changer.
So I firmly believe that if you were to take your people and they want to be realtors and you make them go through an ISA position for 6 months, then you turn them loose to a realtor, they're probably going to be far more successful and make more money than anybody that you have in your organization, just because they know they're directly working with you, they're coaching with you, they're mentoring with you, they're doing the calls, they're learning the systems, they're doing the follow-up, they're learning the drips and the action plans. They do all of these things, and that's what you have to do on a daily basis to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it builds that habit. They're showing up every day. They're showing up and doing the work every day. And
that is correct.
That builds that habit, that builds that muscle. So then when they do transition into you get them to keep that same mindset. It's like, hey, don't change your schedule. Keep doing what you're doing. You're going to make your calls in the mornings. Then you're going to be on appointments in the afternoons. You're going to be doing your nurtures and follow-ups and things, possibly other things in the evening, but keep the same schedule. That's what I always tell people. When you transition into this business, especially if you've been in a corporate or business setting to where you had to show up at a certain time and do certain activities, keep that mindset. And it's just like, what you had said in the beginning with real estate. You're like, this stuff's gonna come to me. I don't have to be disciplined in the morning. I don't have to do this. But if you can just adopt that type of mindset and mentality that it's discipline. You're getting up, you're doing the things, you're showing up when you're supposed to show up, you're doing the things you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it.
Absolutely. To me, that's one of the most, the easiest ways to become successful.
Yeah.
Now, you still got to learn your scripts and your dialogues, but just like we all have the same amount of time in our day.
That's right.
It's just how we spend it. Like, what do you do? So, and I have these conversations and I ask people, well, how much time did you spend in real estate today? Well, I worked all day. I said, okay, how many calls did you make? Well, they're like, well, I made 10 calls. I said, did you get a hold of anybody? They were like, well, no. I said, well, it takes 30 seconds to make a phone call until it goes to voicemail. Right. So how many minutes did you actually, talk on the phone to somebody, or how much time did you put? So you spent 30 minutes making 10 phone calls? Not even that. And then what did you do to better yourself? What knowledge did you seek out today? Did you read any books? Did you study the market? Did you do any of these things? Did you go show houses? No. So in other words, you're telling me that you put in 15 minutes today in real estate. 100%. What did you do with the rest of your time?
Right. And, the indicator is the calendar. And, I think, people resist it. They fight it for the longest time. But when you finally just lean in and embrace it, you understand that, really what's in your calendar is what your habits are, what your behaviors are. And our habits really dictate where we're going to go. So, we always have said, show me your calendar and I know what your revenue is going to be in the next 60, 90 days.
Yeah. And if there's nothing's filled in there, it's just going to be zero.
It's going to be zero. All right. It's November right now. You look back over your calendar through October, November will be an indicator of what's going to happen for you in January, what's going to happen for you in February. And especially as the days on market start to extend, that's going to be, about that 90-day cycle, right? What we're cashing checks for this month is what we did 90 days ago. And really starting to understand that, you have to do those, you have to show up, you have to do those activities daily to be able to make sure that, you're building the momentum and the habits and the conversations and appointments and clients in order for us to, need what we need 90 days from now, 120 days from now.
As we sit here and talk about these things and people are thinking probably, this is what I do. This is what I do. Well, you know what? Really, if you really want to know how much time that you actually invest and spend in your real estate or your business, go punch a time clock on everything that you're doing to really see, or write down exactly how much time that you did doing these things. And you're going to look back and realize that you didn't spend all day in real estate. You spend a fraction of the day doing these productive activities, which are going to lead to the dollars or the success that you want to achieve. So, if you just really analyze your time, like you're saying with your calendar, that's the easiest way to get time back in your day and make yourself more productive.
Right. 100%. Man, as you study the market, especially locally there in, the Lawton, area, what are you anticipating? What do you think the market's going to do? Where are the opportunities going to start to pop up?
I think one of the things that, and I've already tried to start this in a little bit, and I coached one of my agents yesterday. I told them that they needed to become very clear and figure out the assumption process, right? So I think that, with
What do you mean by that?
the assumption of loans, right? So start to try to specialize in the assumption of loans the process. And I'm gonna tell you why I said this to her. She held an open house, right? And the gentleman that came to the open house, he liked the house, but he had been calling the realtors on the signs, and he found a house that he liked. And he told her, he says, I think, I appreciate you, helping the open house and talk to us about this home, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to go, and I can have the ability to get a 8.75 or 3% interest rate or something. She was kind of like taken back by it. And she said something to me about it. I says, no, you can't get a 3% interest rate right now. And she's like, well, that's what I thought. I said, here's what he has found. He has found somebody's note that he can assume at 3%. And then I started to explain to her the assumption process. And she says, it's exactly what he was doing. And so now he went and he's in the process of buying this other home because he can assume this lower interest rate. But if she would have been the expert, or she would have had that knowledge about how the assumptions worked, that would have been her client, not somebody else's, right? So, I think the assumptions is going to be, an opportunity for people in this market. But as far as, I don't think the rates are going to come back down to where they were at, 3%, 3.5%. I think if anything, they probably will come back down in mid fives to, 5% or something, and they probably will level out at that point. That would be my thoughts. And so, that's going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think you're right, man. I think there's some of the opportunities there. No matter what, in any market, there is an opportunity. I think you just have to know, you have to study it, you have to see, pay attention to the indicators. What are as we kind of wrap up here, what are a couple of the things that you're always paying attention to, things that you're looking at on a pretty much a daily basis?
I look at the amount of homes that are obviously coming to the market every single day. I mean, I look at every single day. I look at every single listing that came to the market, just because I want to know what the competition is for my clients. I want to know if somebody was to ask me about a property that I'm able to. I have somewhat of kind of a photographic memory, which helps me. But I look at what is happening every single day. How many homes go under contract? How many homes had price reductions? How many homes were how many listed? How many went under contract? What properties went under contract? What properties closed? I am a student of the market and the information, the data, because I want to know, because I can talk about that information and it makes me more of an authority figure than it does over my competition, just by knowing simple statistics and what's happening in the market. So that to me is one of the most valuable things that I can do.
Yeah, I agree, man. And just really knowing the ins and outs, where things are at, basing off of kind of what you've seen historically, you can start to see kind of the trends, and really paying attention to, where things are at. I mean, it makes you better. And then it also cascades down to the rest.
You can forecast. You're actually almost able to kind of predict what the future is by looking at all the information. You can predict what's going to happen in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
To me, that is invaluable.
It is. It's incredible. Brother, I appreciate you as always. Fantastic conversation, and just definitely a ton of value there. Things for agents, it's more than showing up. It's showing up, being intentional, and really doing the action, doing the things that will give you tremendous success in this business, especially as agents are leaving. Agents are still sitting and waiting for deals to fall in their lap. Be thinking, right? Homes are still going to sell no matter what. And even if the interest rates double, homes are still going to sell. People have to buy and sell. And so, it's kind of that thought process. What do you got to do to go get your unfair share of those opportunities?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest takeaways that I had, I'm going to go back to the kitchen table group that we are a part of. And we were having a conversation, and this is like my motto. This is my thought process now. Somebody said, maybe it was you, who has my money? Right. So my constant, what I always reminded myself, I was like, who's got my money? Who has my money? Right. So that's what I need to do. Who has my money and where I'm going to go get it?
That's right.
And that's like that's what stuck with me.
Yeah. That's a great way to wake up thinking about it. Like, who's got my money that I'm going to go get today? Right.
That's it.
Who am I going to go get today? So I love it, man. Appreciate you, brother. And, appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys connect with Stace and Stace and Reedy, staceandreedy.com. You can find them anywhere there. Real Estate Experts LLC, Facebook. But get connected with Stace. Tremendous, like I said, world class at what he does. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Hey, man. Thank you.